Welcome back to the second part of our video series on matplotlib. So just a quick recap what we have achieved in the first part. So in the first part, we saw how we can install our matplotlib library using the pip install command, then how we can import this library, and where specifically we have imported the pyplot module, which we will be using for data visualization. Then we just defined our data set and plotted a basic plot using the dot plot function, and this was the basic plot that we generated. Then on addition to this, we saw how we can add different components like the title, the legend, the labels for X and Y axis, and the grids to better convey the information. Alright. Then we saw how we can format our plot, where we explored different options like changing the color of the line, changing the style of the line, adding the markers, and so on. So these were the options that we explored to improve the appearance of our plot. Alright. So in total, we explored different functions and options in matplotlib that I believe every beginner should be aware about. So if you haven't watched that video, you can just watch that video by clicking this link right here. You can choose to watch it right now or later after this part. That's completely your choice. Now moving on, in this part we'll see how we can plot multiple plots in the same figure using the subplots function. Then we'll dive deeper into it and we'll see how we can create figures and access objects explicitly to better handle multiple figures and multiple plots at the same time. I'll talk about these soon. This will also help you to get clear picture of how these plots function actually work in matplotlib. Alright, then once we have that understanding, we'll see how we can generate a final plot where we'll just plot this same plot, but these 3 line plots will be plotted into 3 different plots, or I would say 3 different axes. Alright, so once we do that, I will also show you how you can save your figure at the end using the function in the matplotlib itself. Alright, so with that, let's start the video. Okay, so let us first see how we can plot multiple plots using the subplots function. Alright, so there is a built-in method called subplot in the pyplot module. And for that, just remember this PLT is just a temporary name for the pyplot module which we have given to it while importing the library. So we use this .subplot method and it takes in 3 arguments. The first argument is the rows, the second argument is the columns, and the third argument is the index. Now I explain you what this means. Consider this particular figure. Alright, so this figure is one figure with one plot. Alright, now consider this plot as a cell in a matrix. Okay, so for now, since there is only one plot, this is a 1 cross 1 cell matrix. Okay, now if I want to have multiple plots, what I can do is I can increase the number of cells in this particular figure. So for that, what I can do is I can define my matrix to have 3 rows and 1 column. So now it will have 3 cells in the vertical direction and each cell will contain a plot. So this is how a subplot will be generated, and this index will tell me out of these 3 plots which plot I need to activate for right now. So for now, I'll say I need to activate my first subplot which is on the top, and now I can plot my data in that particular plot using the dot plot function. Alright, so now if you see, we have our results ready in my topmost cell of my figure. So you see the size of the figure is already reduced because we have divided our plot in 3 cross 1 matrix. So the cell is also divided into 3 different width of the figure. Okay, so I'll just now what I'll do is I'll again use the plot dot subplot, but now I'll use the second index. So what it will do is it will activate my second subplot, and then I can use this plt.plot command to plot my data in the second cell as well. So you see, if I plot the company B data, it is plotted in the second cell which is just below, and similarly I can do it for the third one as well. So I do it for company C, and you also see that we have 3 plots which are generated now in one figure. So that's how you can have multiple subplots. And so if you see, what's the benefit of it is, if I just go and save this image, so this will be a single image containing all the 3 subplots. All right, and it's not just the three different figures that are generated. So that's the difference that is there. Now, maybe you can also try it out the opposite way. So if I could have one column and one row and three columns, then the figures would be arranged horizontally and not vertically. All right, so this is now a three cell matrix with the dimension 1 cross 3. All right, now if you see, we have data overlapping and it doesn't look good. So for that, sometimes you can use this plot.tightLayout function, which will help you to manage the padding and the distances between your labels and the figures. All right, so this is how you can use the subplot to plot multiple plots. Now let us see how these subplots actually function. For that, we need to understand the figures and axis objects. All right, just have a look at this plot. This is the plot that we generated in matplotlib using the .plot function. All right. Now, whenever we generate a plot, there are two objects that are always created, either implicitly or explicitly. The first object is the figure object that is created and acts as a kind of a container where multiple plots could be stored. The second object is the axis object, which is actually the plotting area where the plot results are shown. Now, on a side note, don't get confused the axis with the axis. The axis with an I represents the x and the y axis that we have in the plots, while the axis with an E represents an object that represents the plotting region of our final plot. Now for this plot, we had one figure object and one axis object that was created. Now if I run plot.subplot method with more than one plot to be generated, it will create one figure object and multiple axis object based on the number of figures that I need to show. So in our case, if I show three plots, there were three objects of axis that were created and one object for figure was created. Now I can also explicitly create another figure object and add multiple axis objects inside that figure. And similarly, I can handle multiple figures and axes using these particular objects. Now if you see and try to understand, when I use this .subplot function here with one row and three columns, it generated three axis objects and arranged them horizontally. Okay. Then when I use index as 1, it activated that particular axis at the leftmost side. All right. And now when I use .plot command after this, it just looked which axis is activated, which is the current axis, and I'll plot the data in that particular axis. And similarly, I activated the second axis and plotted the results in that region, then the third axis and plotted the data in that third region as well. So this is how subplot actually works. Now that we know about figures and axis objects and how they are created implicitly, let us see if we want to create those explicitly, how we can do that. So let us start by creating a figure. So in order to create a figure, I'll just provide a name to it, fig1, and then I'll use .figure method to it. And if I just run this, it will create a figure object. And if you see, there is a figure object that is created with 0 axis. So still now we don't have any axis object in this figure. Now to add axis, we have another method so that is available. So I'll show you two methods that are there. And so first one is, let's say I give it a name ax1, and again I'll use fig1 dot add axis method. And if I just do this, it will add an axis object to this my figure1 object, and it will take as an input parameter an array containing 4 different parameters. I'll show you what those actually mean. So the first two parameters are actually the padding that we need to provide on the left and bottom side of my axis object, and this next two is the width and the height of my plotting region. Okay, so I'll just show you by running this command. So you see we have our axis one object containing the plotting region in our figure. So if I just do, instead of 1, let's say 0.5, so it will just reduce the width to half. Okay, and if I just do my height as well to 0.5, it will again reduce my height to half. So you need to understand whatever number I am putting here is the fraction of the figure size. So if I am using 0.5, it will create a width of 50% of whatever the figure size is. Alright. So in order to understand this padding, I need to create another axis that I'll just create and show you how you can have multiple axes in the same figure object. All right. So I just do this as well. And now if I run this, you see we have figure 1 dot add axis 0 0. And for this, let me just have 1 1. And so you see we have already another axis, but they are kind of overlapping. So for that, I'll just change these parameters and we can see the output now. So now you can see we have two axis plotting regions. So why are they like this? Because the width and height I have provided to be same as the figure size, but I said that the left padding on my first axis should be 1. That is the 100% of the figure size should be my padding size. Okay. So what it will do is it will just move the whole axis plot region 1 to this particular line from the leftmost margin. All right. So if I do 2, so it will just use whatever the figure width, twice of that, it will shift my second axis. Okay. So this is something like this. So maybe it's now clear to you what are these parameters, but you can play around with these parameters to understand it better. So I'll just keep it to 1 and 1 at the bottom. So now you can see better the effect of these dimensions. Now the second method to have the axis is to use dot add subplot. So this is kind of similar to what we did here, dot subplot. So I need to again provide whatever the number of axes that I need to have. So I need to have 3 rows and 1 columns, and this particular axis would be the first index. All right. So for now, I'll just take 2 rows and then I can just do it for the second axis as well. And this would be my second index for my EX2. If I just comment this out, you'll see we will have a matrix with 2 rows and 1 column. All right. So this is kind of similar to dot subplot function that we have used before, but now we are explicitly adding those objects one by one. So that's the benefit that we are having right now. But there is one more method that I wanted to show you, which is used most of the time. So where you have your figure and axis created together itself, so you don't have to write different commands for creating the figure and then adding the axis. And that method is plot.subplots. If you just see, now we are using subplots. Before that, we had just subplot here and here as well. All right. So this is a different name here. You just need to take care of this. So you have to use dot subplots. And now you just need to provide what are the number of rows and columns that you need to have for this particular plot. Okay. So again, I'll do 2 rows and 1 column. Now I don't need to provide the index because it will just give me 2 axes created together itself, and then I just need to split them, and so that these axes are now saved into 2 different variable names. Okay. Now if I run this, you will see, okay, let me just comment this out so you can better see what is the figure 2 like. So you see, again we have a 2 cross 1 matrix, but now both the axes are created together and the figure is also created together using just a single line. So this is like a concise method to be used, and this is more generally used in any programming. Okay. So you can maybe play around with this. You can just do 3 cross 2 and then see the results. So you'll have 6 cells. So it says too many values to unpack because I have just provided 2 axes, but there are 6 axes that are there. So you can see right here. and you can just add axis 1 to up to 6 for your output. Okay, so now you have this particular method ready as well. Now, if you want to plot the results in this particular plots, instead of using plot and plt.plot and then doing x comma y1, now you can directly use this particular axis object, okay? Because this axis object is the plotting region, if you remember. So if I do ax1 dot plot, so it will just plot my output in this particular plot. If I do ax2 dot plot, it will output my results into this plot. So that's the benefit of explicitly creating these figure and axis objects. We can explicitly choose where I need to plot what figure. Okay, so that's how you can create these figures and axis objects and use that to plot your data. All right. Now let us move on to the last section of this video, where we'll try to generate a plot where we'll plot these plots in 3 different subplots arranged vertically. All right. So whatever we have learned till now, we'll just use that knowledge to solve this task. So the first thing first, I need to create my figure and axes. All right. So I'll just name it figure 1 so that it will just override the previous figure 1 object that I have created. Then since I need to plot 3 plots, I'll create 3 axes and I'll just use plt.subplots with 3 rows and 1 column, because I just need to arrange them vertically. So if I just do this, I have my 3 axes ready with my figure as my container. Now the next thing, so I just can copy this method plt.plot so that I can keep all the formatting as well, and I can just paste it here. And now if you remember, instead of plt, I can simply use ax1, ax2 for my second plot and ax3 for my third plot. So what it will do is it will just plot the data from company A in my ax1 object, which is this object, and similarly for company B and C in the second and the third object. So if I just run this, you can see our plot somewhat looks what we needed to solve. Okay, so now we have our plot ready. The next thing that we need to do is add the information, which is the legend, grid, and the X labels and Y labels. So let me just add them one by one. So first I'll add the title, X label, and Y label. Now just notice again there's a PLT. I can do either AX1, and AX1 for my first axis. So if I just do this, you'll see there's an error that AX1.title. Okay, there's no title command for this, so we have to use set title method whenever we use axis, and similarly for X label and Y label. All right, now if I do this, you can see we have our Y label and X label ready and along with the title, but it doesn't look good because everything is just congested. All right, so let me just first do one thing. Let me just remove the bold argument and let us see how it looks now. Okay, so it's kind of better, and I can do it for my other axis as well. Again, this is not the axis, this is just AXES, the axis, which is the object, which is the plotting region that I'm referring to, and not the axis of my figure. So always remember that. Now if I do this for each of the 3 axes, you can see we have 3 titles, 3 Y labels, and 3 X labels. But if you see, we don't need the title for each of our axes. If we can just have my title for the first axis, and for the second and third I can just remove them. Then if you see for the X label, even if it's hidden, we don't need to show the X label for all the 3 plots because it's arranged horizontally. I can just use the X label for my last object, last axis object. So this will be used to show the X label for all the X axis in the other regions as well. So now for the Y axis as well, I can either use the Y label for the second plot region, and I can just comment out for the first and third. So it will make it much more cleaner. So you see now we have a clean representation, and you can also see we have X ticks for X axis for all the three plots. But what if I just don't want to have those? For that, there's an option that we can have in plt.subplots. So whenever we created these figure and axis objects, there is an option that you can use share X equal to 2. What it will do is it will share those X values for all the three plots, and you can't see the numbers now. Okay, this just makes it more cleaner. Okay, so this is how you can add those components. There are also different other components that we need to add. So there is a legend as well and grid as well. So I'll just do it for all the three plot regions again. So what I'll do is I'll just do ax1.legend and ax1.grid. So you will see we will have a legend and a grid for my first axis. Similarly, I can do it for second and third. Okay, so now it looks cleaner. Okay, so now we have the grid, we have the legend, we have the title, and we have the X label and Y label. There's also one more method that you can use. Instead of just selecting which Y label to use and which to not, and which title to use, you can just use fig1.subtitle method. So what it will do is it will create a super title for all the three figures. So what I'll do is, okay, the title is here, and if I do this, so now if you see, I can just remove this. Okay, I can just remove this title of my first axis. I don't need this, and it will just create a universal title for my all axis plots. Okay, so this is my title of my figure and not any axis plot. Then similarly, I can do it for my labels as well. So I can do sub x label, and then I can give it a label name months, and similarly I can just comment this out and comment this out as well, and then I can copy my Y label and then do fig1.sub Y label, and then I can paste it here. So now if I run it, there will be X labels and Y label in the figure itself, all right, and not for each of the axes. So this solves our final task. Now we have created multiple plots from our plot that we generated in the previous part. And yeah, so we did that by explicitly creating the figure and axis object. And I hope you understood this concept, because it will give you a clear picture of how these plots are generated in matplotlib. All right, so the last step that is left now is to save our figure. So for that, you can just simply do .save, and I can do control space. So to see if there is what is the exact spelling of my function, save figure, and then I can write any name, let's say task 1. And if I don't provide an extension, there will be an default extension of PNG. So my figure will be stored as a PNG file. So if I just see my window here, there is this task1.png file that is created, and you can see we have this figure as an output. Now you can download it and just to do whatever you want to do with it. Okay, so that's it for this part, and in the next part we'll move on to see what are different types of plots that you can plot in matplotlib. And if you found this content helpful, please hit that like button and do subscribe the channel so that you never stop learning. Thank you for watching.